have a certificate, someone has to sign up for that.
It's very similar to the prisons. They put a number on somebody here,
Right.
and this person becomes the inventory of the state,
Right.
and in the state of California.
And
they refer to the Department of Human Resources, a resource of the state, not a employment department for the individual.
Well, isn't this more or less like Nazi Germany, in a sense, where everybody was numbered and everybody was tagged?
It's actually worse.
It's worse?
Yeah, it's worse because the prisoners do not know they're prisoners. Going back to that certificate, a certificate is nothing but evidence of a debt. As you know, if you have a stock certificate, you own part of that company, don't you? Some asset in that company. So the stock that you carry, that certificate, allows you to have a portion of whatever that profit is or whatever the terms and agreement of that stock certificate is. The same thing applies to a birth certificate. Where does that birth certificate go? You have any ideas? It goes right to the Department of Commerce. And it's the Department of Commerce that holds that in lieu of the debt that's owed.
We are owned by the international bankers and the Department of Commerce that puts our number up for sale, or up for barter, you could say.
Can they hypothecate that?
It is hypothecated.
And then they create wealth out of your being alive and being a part of their inventory. You're part of their check inventory. That's an asset to create further debt or to use the debt.
The government has openly admitted that this is going to have to be paid back by our children and our children's children. Now, what right do we have to condemn our children into slavery, into giving up 60–70% of their labor for all their lives?
Is the child owned by the Federal Reserve or the monetary system?
Not really owned by them, but controlled by them as far as the money is concerned. They control the assets that the child will earn for a lifetime, and they will also control how much money that child will earn during its lifetime, so they can assess the amount of taxes that child will earn.
In 1860, blacks were owned by other people. They were slaves. What sort of certificate did they have there? Did they have a birth certificate that would indicate that they owned them?
They had a birth certificate, but their birth certificates were assigned to the owner. The owner owned that particular slave, and he had to sign off that particular certificate in order to set that slave free, to make that person a free man at that particular time.
Isn't that pretty much what we have now?
You could say more or less, except we're owned by the international bankers. We're owned by the international bankers.
In Nazi Germany, the prisoners knew they were prisoners. The population knew who the enemy was. Here they can't see it. The people just know there's something wrong, something's desperately wrong. They can't accumulate anything, they can't do anything, their privacy is invaded. Everything is regulated. And they can be thrown in prison for an action that doesn't hurt somebody. In the common law, you had to have an action and an injury. That's why these guys were in prison here. They hurt somebody, they murdered somebody.
In Nazi Germany, you could see the guards, you could see the guns being toted. But in America, when your accounts are frozen, you don't see the guys in black come in and say, give me the account of the citizen. We have the IRS taking the funds, we have the franchise tax board taking the funds, we have other commissions and boards divvying up the proceeds from a person's account.
You need a license to do virtually everything in this country today.
It's like being in the service.
Well, at least here, you can see the bars around you. In this case, we're prisoners without bars. We have a pretty view, but we're absolutely controlled. Ron, you were talking about 32 and 33?
Yeah, in March of 1933, that we went off the gold standard, and we were issued a fiat money. Now those monies have liens on them, as you know. So on that very day, the entire wealth of the American people was removed from them. Your house that was worth $10,000 in gold coin now was worth $10,000 of Federal Reserve notes with liens on it that accrue interest on each day that passes by. That's what happened to the wealth of the American people.
The president said this was to save the country. I mean, he had to take in the gold and made it illegal for Americans to own American gold. But that was to save the country.
Yeah, it was to save the country. We have what's called Article 1, Section 8, which are the enumerated powers of the Congress. In those enumerated powers, it doesn't give any grants to the Congress of the United States to loan money. Back in 1931, we started loaning gold certificates that were not backed by gold reserves. We loaned it to Europe. We loaned it to England to save the pound sterling. That failed. What happened? We loaned it to France. And France didn't need the money. But France took those gold certificates, and there was a moratorium of 1 year that they didn't have to pay back the debt. They took those gold certificates and came back to the United States and depleted the gold supply here. They stole most of the gold.
Well, they're not stupid.
No, they're not. No, they're
But how about
not.
the American public?
Now,
Are
wait
you
a minute,
stupid?
Ron. Are you telling me that was my gold in the Treasury because
That's right.
I have that certificate? Remember? I've got this certificate right here.
Yes.
So you're telling me that the government gave them my gold so that I couldn't go back with my certificate and get my gold.
That's correct.
Certificate my ass. You don't get anything for that. They take your gold, they give you a piece of paper.
I'm not going to say this was a strategy done by people in our government, but as soon as the first ships came over and were being filled with all our gold, and that happened on a daily basis for 6 months, do you think our government should have said, wait a minute, we can't allow our gold to leave our country? It didn't. It allowed it to leave.
They promised the people's gold.
They're taking gold and they're turning it into paper. I mean, they're taking your gold. Oh, you get the paper.
Oh, you could spend 100 hours of labor mining gold, getting bullion, 100 hours we'll say, and you take it into them and they give you a piece of paper that's leaned for all your time.
They get the gold, we get the shaft. Right?
Exactly.
Exactly.
The creator again has been replaced by the state. The state is the creator over your talents.
Oh, they're going to set things right with that Agenda 21, I think.
Now, let's look at it this way.